Hey, and welcome. It is a Let's Turn to Double Play Day. We had the BBA today, episode number 99, earlier this morning, sitting down with the commissioner of the Brewster Baseball Association. And this afternoon, we get the wonderful situation of hitting BBA Today, episode number 100. I am Ron Collins, General Manager of the Bikini Krill, and I get with me the Vancouver General Manager, the great poobah of the Mounties, Aaron Wharram. Good evening. It is evening time. I guess I should call it evening rather than afternoon. How are you today, Aaron? Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I actually forgot this was number 100, so looking forward to having a little chat,
Yeah.
especially about one big elephant in the room that happened with the team. So,
Oh yeah, that huge deal that you made with Twin Cities for, was it Will Reuter and
Will
Joel Woodruff?
Ritter and then Joel Woodruff. Yeah,
Yeah, what a huge, impactful deal.
yeah, absolutely.
The question that is in everybody's, I assume that you had to make that kind of deal to get the attention off of that level of deal to get the attention off of the Bessie signing. Oh yeah, that one's a fairly big one too.
Yeah, that one's kind of big, I guess.
So before we get down into the details on all of the Vancouver specifics, kind of how are you feeling coming out of 2062 and into the off season? Where do you feel your Vancouver Mounties are? Kurt and I have talked a little bit about the Pacific in earlier episodes. How do you feel about the Vancouver Mounties overall? Are you going according to plan? Are you digging like mad under the surface? What are your thoughts as we sit here on January 1st, 2063? Happy New Year, by the way.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. No, I'm feeling pretty good. Got a lot of young talent still hitting, still improving. I think anything less than playoff contention this year will be a disappointment, but was happy to make it last year at the very last minute over Kurt because Kurt and I always have to wait to the last sim to actually clinch the playoffs. So of course, it came down to the two of us again.
That's true.
And then another first round exit, but I wasn't too disappointed in that one. I kind of expected it, and at least it didn't go to Game 5.
Yeah, I think ultimately when you eke into the playoffs in the essentially last sim of the season, or is it even last day? I don't remember whether it was last
I
day
think
or
it
not.
was it
I
was
think it
the
was.
I think it was the last day. I think I beat Long Beach, and he lost to Portland.
Yeah,
The
I mean
final game.
you're coming in as the effectively as the last wild card, and the cliche thing that says that anything can happen when you make it into the postseason is true. But on the other hand, the numbers are pretty stark for the last guy in. I think something like 6 or 8% of Brewster championships have been won by what number is whatever however we set the seeds up.
Yeah.
So, but still, it's always nice to make the playoffs. It's always nice to have the extra revenue stream and things like that. Was that pretty much where your plan was out? What you were thinking? That you were going to be contend for last wild card team, or were you more thinking? Or I guess looking forward, are you thinking division title or strong playoff team, or only strong playoff team?
Well, even though Julius is gone, I still expect Sacramento to be easily taking the division this year. But I would love to be fighting for it and not stressing myself all year of, are we going to make the playoffs? Are we not going to make the playoffs? That way, can rest guys early and get better matchups. Because obviously, when I had to face Twin Cities, I was without Dirk Bestie, I think, for the first two games.
Mm-hmm.
So, that would have been nice to have. But, yeah, I'm just excited for this year. I think we're going to be very good. Got the 1-2 punch in the bullpen of Alofsky and Garcia. Still have Bative and Garcia pitching very well. Sam Fisher's back for another year.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to give like my maybe slight concern, the bullpen I think is a little weaker overall compared to last season, losing guys like Rick Clairgis and I think Alexander Scalabris that I drafted from Twin Cities last season.
Right.
In Rule 5, he kind of went down a little bit. But who knows? Maybe they'll come around. The young guys that maybe get called up will fill in those spots.
Yeah, the difficulty that I see with your bullpen in that sense is the bottom half of it. Obviously, your top, as you were saying with Ilovsky and Garcia, your top end is as strong as about anybody's when it comes right down to it. Garcia may not be like a prime number 2 guy, but he's awful close out of the bullpen. And you'll get some pretty good performance, I think, out of guys like you've got Jeffrey Greening is got some really interesting ratings.
Yeah.
You know, so I think you got some pretty solid guys there. The problem with a thin low end of the bullpen is that it really kind of shows up if your rotation gets hurt. Right, because depth of bullpen is a little bit of an advantage when your third and fourth and fifth starters kind of tail off a little bit. The depth of bullpen, if they've got to pitch 3 days in a row, that gets to be a little bit wearing. But the Pacific is going to be an interesting division. Is an interesting division for you to be sitting in, because like you said, you and Kurt, San Fernando. Bikini seems to join the fray every other year, so we had a down year. Maybe this is an up year for us. You know, we're a yo-yo team. You know, Portland, as we've said, will be bouncing. I fully expect we'll bounce back. You know, we're all talking about Sacramento being the prescribed favorite, but I think Hawaii has. You know, I didn't add up the numbers throughout the year, but Hawaii, I believe, was leading the division for many more days than Sacramento. It's just they kind of flubbed in September, as I recall. And I think Hawaii won't be getting any worse as far as that goes. They were young coming in, and James has been doing some nice mid-range moves. With the tropics, so it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be kind of a melee again.
Yeah.
You went through and you posted all of your expected starting lineup in the field. Maybe you can step through that just a little bit. You know, my my response was as if any of those guys are going to still be on your team in another couple of weeks.
Never know. That's the fun.
Yeah, but I mean, are you actively thinking about trying to make moves and improve things? It seems like a lot of times your moves through the season have to do with injuries and so forth. But do you expect this list to be your guys?
At the start of the season, sure, yeah, I think so. That's why I made this list kind of early. I'm not pursuing anybody in free agency at the moment, and for what I see on the trade block, there isn't really anything I really like that would upgrade, I think, what we've got now.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, so we got Goder at catcher, obviously not going anywhere. 22 years old, or 20, just going to be 23 at the start of the season, but looks like he had a little defensive bump again, so he's definitely going to lock down that spot. I can't see him going away anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's going to be replaced, it would probably be Sam Corkum. You know, started very good last season and then just completely fell off after, I think, June. Hit 163 in July, 218 in August, and 198 September. So just complete nosedive from when he started the season. So patience starting to run a bit thin. That's why I grabbed Cologne from, what are they called now? Cobby Hill?
Right.
Not Brooklyn, Cobby Hill.
Right.
So he'll be in AAA for now, but it'll kind of just send him a message of, you know, if you don't improve, this guy could come replace you. And I guess you can say the same for second base as well with Hadanoff, but I don't really have anyone in the minors ready to take second base yet from him, so he could maybe be someone throughout the season if someone becomes available. He could be replaced. Oscar Losdahl, short, should hopefully now finally be good at shortstop for the 1 year I've got him signed for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he should be good. Third base will be interesting as well. Sergio Mendoza had a fantastic year. If he didn't get injured, he would have been like a 4-WAR season there. But, of course, injuries had to affect that.
Right.
But I do have like considered my number one prospect, and I'm blanking on his name. Just my top prospect, Francisco Dominguez. He'll be in AAA this year. Developed quite nicely the last couple of years. Was picked, was it the 58 draft in the first round when he was in high school. So he's starting to come around. So we'll see if maybe there's a switch around there. If things go bad for Mendoza and Dominguez looks good, who knows?
Yeah,
Over at left,
Dominguez has a bit of development left to go, but he's only 21, so I would suggest if you need him to be playing this year, then things are probably not going quite as well as you would like. But
yeah, like I don't expect him to be coming up this year, except for maybe September call-ups, depending where we're at. But I'd rather have him a full year starting in AAA ball, get the experience, and then go from there.
Right.
Then out left, Greg Clover held that spot for past few years now, so shouldn't be going anywhere unless he stumbles out the gate. But I think he's got one more year of arbitration, then he's going to want a contract, so we'll have to see how that goes when we get there.
Right.
But that's next year's me problem to deal with.
Yeah, and of course your major breakout season from Royce Hinkle last year certainly made things a lot easier. You get it. What was he? What he had 32, 39 home runs. Where's his numbers here?
32 homers
in Vancouver's Park. That's a pretty prodigious. Pretty prodigious number. Obviously, a pretty huge deal for you, and I would tend to guess that he is a face of the franchise kind of a guy if he keeps that up another year or two. So,
well, things go to plan. If he maybe bumps up a bit of left field with that range, I could see that being the Clover replacement if Clover decides to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And just slide him over to left, get a new DH. But easier said than done.
Yeah.
That center, we got Amphibian Johnson. Was just the bat sucked. That was really disappointing. I think Shoeless jinxed him as he left. Went from 96 OPS plus, so league average, to 70 was just like okay.
Yeah.
But obviously his defense and speed are why I like him there. So.
Yeah, and you can live with a 75 or 80 OPS plus from a defense first center fielder if that's a precursor to things that come, that would be a little bit more unnerving.
Yeah, exactly. But it'll be interesting too because I know Hector Ruiz, my other big prospect, he's going to be in AAA this year as well. He got a nice bump. He's up to 45. He's currently excelling his plate discipline, Dev Lab. So, could be maybe up in the majors earlier than I was thinking.
Yeah,
so,
that would be nice. The Dev Lab is always fun when you see the excelling or the outstandings or whatever, but you got a long way to go.
Yeah. Well, like I said, he's up to, I think, 8 gap power. He's at 7 power. Could maybe get that up to 8. So if his contact can come up a little more, he could easily be the center fielder by next year starting.
There you go.
Which would be very nice. And gotta see what happens. On the right, we got Z Lee, another fantastic season, just down the drain thanks to an injury. I think he was hitting 303 through 60 games, and then got a ruptured MCL and had to miss 10 months, so it sucked.
There you
So
go.
hopefully him at 24 won't affect him too much, and he'll be able to hit. And then, Roy Tinkle, DH. Talked about him. I don't think he's going to be replaced anytime soon. So,
Yeah.
I think in terms of this offense, I wouldn't see a lot of movement.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a fairly common refrain through a lot of the league right now. As you look down your offensive roster, and it's essentially all 27 years and younger. A couple of guys sitting out there, elder statesmen, but it seems like as long as you don't have injury issues, that this is the core that will be running you along, and it's a nice little core. It's if you trust out of the park overall ratings, you got a nice run of 8 or 10 guys that are 50 and 55s, which basically just means you don't have any major holes. And so you get all those guys kind of running in lockstep through the next 2 to 3 years, and see what happens. But again, that is a common refrain for everyone. So for a lot of teams anyway. So from a competitive nature, it should make for a lot of entertaining baseball over the next 2 seasons. And as I was talking with, I don't know if you listened to the BBA today with Matt. The Frontier is a team with a lot of equality in it, and it feels to me like the Pacific has fallen into that category too. So ultimately, it's going to be really. I expect again that you and Kurt are going to be kind of like simpatico compatriots, right? It seems like you have that neck and neck thing going on every year.
Surprised if there's anything else.
There you go. Well, let's open up and talk about the big deal, the Dirk Bessie deal. At the end of the day, it feels like that the availability of Dirk Bessie, who is clearly one of the stronger pitchers in the league right now at age 30, solid stamina makes him a major pitcher because he can go deeper into games right now than a lot of other. It seems to me that there are a lot of 3 and 4 and 5 stamina pitchers in.
Yeah, there's a lot more of those guys cropping up.
Right. Bessie is kind of an old school go 7-8 innings kind of a guy when he's on. But what are your feelings on his injury situations? You talked on both Discord and on the forum, as I recall, about going back and forth and negotiating quite heavily with Bessie. I guess maybe talk about the internals of what those were and what your thoughts were as far as that 6 years is a pretty big commitment to be making at $16 and $17 million a pop for a guy who has been hurt before. So with that lead in, let me let you blabber for a little bit about Dirk Bessie and your thoughts.
Yeah, I think what I wrote was it took nearly 100 attempts, and I don't think that was an exaggeration. I think it was tough at first because he originally was asking for $22 million a year for 6 years. So that's why for a while I didn't think, okay, I'm not going to be able to re-sign him, no way. So, I tried. He finally started to come down on price, but he wouldn't come down on years. He wouldn't get rid of the player options. And I thought about just letting him walk, saying, forget it, let's just go elsewhere. But it's Dirk Bessie, it's pitcher of the year winner. I can't let that guy just walk for nothing. And, even though he did just become wrecked, ways to remedy that, keep a good pitch count on him, go to the dev lab.
Mm-hmm.
Because, his time here when I signed him in 60, he suffered, I think, really just 2 6-week injuries over 2-3 years. So obviously it's not great, but if that's what we can keep it limited to, I don't think that'd be as big a deal. Obviously, then if we get something like a year-long injury, then that'll be kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. But I think we're in a position where we got the young talent on offense. We got to supply with good pitching, and Bessie's going to do that when he's healthy.
Yeah. And
So I think it was, yeah.
And Bessie's only 30, so it would be pretty hard to just let him walk out.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the counter conversation is if he did head to free agency, would you have been able to get him back at 16 and 17 for 6?
I don't think so. He probably would have. I think he would have gotten at least 20 a year.
Right.
I'm sure there would have been a team desperate enough. So it was kind of like, well, if I can get him a bit under what he's asking for, and I'll cede the player options, because I think part of the thing that I'm hoping for is he's high financial ambition. So maybe after year 3, even if things are maybe going fully to plan, he'll maybe say, "Oh, my contract money's going down. I'm opting out." So maybe that'll give me an out, but it could go the other way, and he'll just screw me over for 3 years. You don't know. You'll find out in 3 years.
Yeah, and of course the absolute best case, which is the no-brainer, that you're happy about, is if you get that deep in and he's still performing well and he sticks around and he's worth the money. These high-end, top 10 kind of real ace pitchers are hard to let go simply because you can't find them again. I mean, nobody is going to be able to trade for Hector Silva. That's not going to happen at this precise stage. So nobody's going to trade for David Molina. Most likely, if anybody came to you, despite your propensity for making the deal, if somebody wants Dirk Bessie, I would guess that they're going to have to be a pretty stout offer, and in which case you're probably not going to get the kind of offer that you would need to make that happen. Now, that having been said, tomorrow Chad will call you up and give you 3 times, and it won't bother him at all, right? Who knows?
Who knows? But yeah, I think it reminds me a lot of when Portland, when they went in and signed, I think, what was it, Sammy McNeil for that 6-year, $82 million. I believe he was wrecked. If I remember correctly, he was wrecked at the time as well.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So we all kind of.
I don't remember whether he was wrecked or whether he was just coming off of a kind of like season-long injury. I'd have to go back and look at the history on that. But yeah,
I'd have to. Yeah,
that was a matter of controversy, and injury ratings are interesting in that sense because I've said before that I've seen people be fragile and not get hurt for 3 years. And you look at Bessie's history, which I've got up on the screen right now, and I mean, he does get hurt. Seems like almost every year he's got something going on, but only a couple times has he lost any real time. And the last, that 7-week injury at the end of last year hurt you in the playoffs without any question. I mean, you can't lose Bessie in the playoffs and not get impacted. But really, the only major thing that he's had is the labrum tear 4 years ago. So, knock on my plastic table for you, he'll be healthy most of the time. His history says he won't be healthy all of the time, but hopefully he'll be healthy for you all of the time, and that will make Vancouver fans happier anyway.
Make me very happy. But I think in terms of we're pretty good financially the next 4 or 5 years. It'll maybe be like that 6th year where maybe I wish that contract is gone, but I think I've got the contract set up enough where when some of these younger guys start hitting arbitration, it shouldn't completely screw me over alongside Bessie's contract.
Yeah.
I think outside of Bessie, the only one that's committed past 64 is Juan Garcia at $6 million a year. So that'll be when Amphibian's contract ends. Petit will have his team options. So I got a lot of flexibility still.
Yeah, you've got some for the next couple of seasons. you will get to the stage where some of those arbitration guys are hitting actual money.
Yeah, that's a little further down the line. So hopefully by that point,
it is
maybe
a
he'll
little
have
further
already
down the
opted
line.
out.
But if you look at Garcia coming to the end of his arbitration time period in 2066, Corkum, Cooper, and you're getting at least a little bit of ARB float. The downside to these long contracts are, you get to 2067 and 2068, you might be able to just afford to eat it. And,
Yeah.
but if you can't eat it, then they eat into salary cap, and that drops your effective salary cap from 110. If it's 16 million, it drops it to effectively 94, which is kind of workable until you start to plug in some of those ARB and extension numbers. But that's part of the joy of managing a tighter salary cap. So
yeah.
And at the end of the day, if Vancouver fans are probably not too worried about your problems come 2066.
No,
I don't think anyone
I'm not concerned with that. So at least for these next 3 years, we'll see what happens, and hopefully, maybe can actually win more than one. Actually, maybe win a playoff series for once.
That would be novel. See, what I think you're doing is you're just trying to make me feel better, right? If you can go through like how many years do I have? Was it 18 or 28? 28 years, I think, going into the playoffs and not winning a Monty. If you could go 28 years and not get out of the Gehagen, that would really up me. That would up the stakes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that should be your goal.
I'll see what happens with that, man. It's just, I feel good with this team. It's just going to be, having to deal with the rest of you guys in the Pacific that I'm not looking forward to.
There you go. Well, what are your thoughts? We've been talking a lot about your major league roster and so forth. We are sitting here on January 1st, which is the official opening of the international free agent market. Do you expect to be playing in the free agent market? How do you, when you look down the list of players, are they what you were expecting? How is Vancouver going to be looking at that market right now?
For IFAs, I honestly haven't really looked. I think I glanced at it once or twice, but I don't think we're going to be major players this year in it, just because I want to know where we're still going to be at financially after this season.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of playing safe than sorry. So I haven't really looked. I'll maybe check it out tonight a little more in depth now that's actually open. But, in terms of you asking me to name players right now, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Like, I don't remember who the heck I was looking at.
Yeah. No, in my mind, it's more a matter of I'm asking about, are you expecting to throw resources into it?
Yeah. Maybe on like one or two guys on like small contracts that maybe slip through the cracks, but I don't think it'll be like the 80 potential guy getting 10 million from us. I don't think that's going to be happening.
Yeah. Yeah, you're obviously I don't have access into your financial screens, but when I add up some numbers, it doesn't feel like you have the $15 million to just go splash into the IFA market right now. But you never know. I have misread teams before, so I do kind of like your international team right now, merely because you have a 55 starting pitcher. It feels to me like, and I haven't actually done the real study of it, but it feels to me like the international market, the discoveries don't seem to be heavily weighted towards pitching, starting pitching in particular. So when you get an actual candidate as a starting pitcher, that's intriguing to me. So he is only
Yeah, that was a
16
nice.
though.
Yeah, I mean, talk to me in 3 years, and we'll see where this kid's at when he's a 20 potential pitcher again.
There you go.
But yeah, that's why I think I splurged a bit on the assistant GM. I think I'm paying like $1 million because he has legendary and outstanding international scouting. Scout Amateurs legendary. And I was told that apparently has some effect on scouting discoveries, so that's why I shelled out a bit for him. So
Yeah.
I've been seeing a couple 40s, 45s get picked up a lot more recently, so maybe there's some truth to it, or maybe it's just me hoping that I'm paying my assistant manager $1 million, but
Yeah, I
know,
think
hey,
I always
yield.
I always love the those kinds of rules of thumb because they could well be true. They sound reasonable. They sound like they could be. The developers tend to be pretty close-lipped on those kinds of things because they can't. In order to prove whether that actually made a difference or not, it would take a pretty intense kind of design of experience of experiment. So instead it's kind of left to legend and how people feel, and if somebody goes out and hires a high assistant general manager in that sense, and they end up getting a bunch of players, then suddenly you say, well, that was the cause. But there are 100,000 seasons played every day and out of the park. If you go to the board, go to the out of the park board and listen to people talk about these weird things that happen, and you go, yes, people, it's amazing. Nobody ever goes to the board and posts, well, I just had a regular everyday season.
Yeah,
They're only posting the things that are outliers. But that's part of the fun, I mean, I like to
yeah,
know what I know, but I also enjoy the fact that I don't know everything. So, and it could well be
exactly.
that your assistant general manager actually made a difference in finding these guys. But I do notice you're also you've got several medium old. I would guess you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys who are 20. They'll all be rolling into the rookie league. What is your experience? Do you mostly my 20-year-olds I end up just dumping because they generally won't make it. So do you have
Mhm.
do you have any experience with the older players coming in and actually making a difference for you at what your rookie league is in Laramie? I should know that.
I think it's just more to having their depth, because like I don't really want to sit around. I know there's other GMs that'll sit through and for hours looking for minor league additions for their teams. Maybe that's why those guys are better than I am. But for me, it's if you're not completely useless, have a spot. Might as well stay here for depth. But like usually once the draft comes along and the younger rookies, better rookies start to come in, then I'll start cutting them as they need to make room.
Oh, there you go. Alrighty. Well, I think I've pretty much worked my way through the primary questions I had when I was scanning scanning the Vancouver roster. It does seem to
Yeah.
me I don't see any reason why Vancouver cannot be a playoff team again, barring other than the fact that it will be a competitive season. And the playoffs will be an interesting run with the fact that the Heartland is actually has become a real live division. Last year they were becoming. This year I think they have become. So
Mm-hmm.
we may find it difficult to put multiple teams into the playoffs if we beat the heck out of each other. But they'll be beating the heck out of themselves too. It'll be really fascinating. Um, have you
Yeah.
had any thoughts about the Heartland and how competitive the Pacific seems like they should be?
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of those teams have gotten better, got younger. You know, I still think Nashville's gonna win the division next year. I don't think there's any dispute on that. I don't think any of them are really ready yet. Maybe Twin Cities, but like we say this every year, and then Chad ends up winning anyways. So I think next year it's gonna be more of the same for the top two teams, the Heartland. But I could see maybe Chicago or Louisville getting a good push, getting into the playoffs maybe next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the one nuance that was different last year is that Chad did not absolutely run away with the division. He won by, I want to say, 8 or 9 games rather than the 15 and 20 and 25 that he's been comfortable with over the semi-recent past. So perhaps the division is catching up with Nashville. Plus, Nashville lost a few players this year. Obviously, they're stacked. They will be able to replace those players, but I don't think you replace a David Molina with another David Molina. He also traded away Lolo. I don't think there's another Lolo in his organization. He's just got good pitchers, right? So if each one of those guys is a couple of games, that 8 or 9 game pad becomes 4 or 5, and then you never know what's going to happen. So you never know.
Oh, that's the beauty of it.
Yep. All righty. Well, unless you've got something else that's on your mind, any other thoughts you wanted to talk about before we wrap this up and call it a?
No, I got much. Just go Mounties, go. It's actually get them, and I think the Leafs are down 5-0. So disappointing for Toronto. So
there it goes. Well, my condolences on that, but looking forward to another great season for the Vancouver Mounties, and we'll have to get together and chat again.
Yeah, this should be a fun one. Should be a fun one.
All righty. Well, thank you for your time here this afternoon, evening, and I know you were kind of on call here, so I appreciate your time.
Yep, thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good night.
Yep, you guys too.